She just sold her company. She sat in a room full of men negotiating the biggest deal of her lifetime. Wait, she sold for how much? I can't even believe she managed to get double her valuation. Let's keep this just between us.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Exit Whisperer. I am your resident Exit Whisperer, Carrie Kirkman, here to share some secrets of a very interesting two-time exited founder. One of the things that we don't talk about on this show enough is when exits happen because of the Ds. So I talk about this a lot. You want to exit when you want to, not because you have to, but when the Ds happen, death, disability, divorce, these are all major changes that cause businesses to be sold. And the idea is you want to set up your business to be sold before any of those things happen. So when Laurel Mintz's father, who ran several franchises of Bassett Furniture out of the West Coast, was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, he very quickly needed to set a plan. And his business, it was in debt. And so he tapped on the one person he could really trust, his daughter, Laurel. In this podcast, Laurel will tell you all about how she managed the heartbreaking and challenging process of being forced to sell her dad's business when it was really under duress, and she had no idea until she got into the financials. And then she'll tell you about how she launched her own marketing firm, which she ended up selling to her employees. And then she'll tell you about how she gave back to the world, women and BIPOC founders, by starting Fabric VC and investing in them. I can't wait for you to listen to her. It's a great listen. So check it out. Laurel, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, so excited to have you. Love talking about this kind of stuff, especially things related to family businesses and things related to sales that go to employees. And I don't want to spill it all, so I'm just going to have you start. Tell me the story of Bassett. How did this all come to be?
Yes. Well, as you know, I started my career as a corporate M&A attorney.
Yes, I do.
I have an MBA in digital marketing, and that's, my first company that I started in 2009. But the universe had a different plan for me. My dad got sick. He's healthy now, as you know. But I ended up having to step in at 26 to run his interest in the Bassett Furniture company. He was the West Coast partner there. So that's what I did at 26, which was wild. I cried every day.
Oh my gosh. So
yeah,
you're 26 years old. You have a path for yourself. You're going, and then the unexpected happens. Dad gets sick and he needs you to take over. Did you have time to even think about it? Was it just something that you just did? Like, take me through that moment. I mean, you must have been so panicked personally and then professionally.
Yeah.
Tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, I mean, he had stage 4 bladder cancer, which was a miracle that he survived to begin with. So yes, emotionally fully panicked and did not expect him to survive that. So on the personal side, not okay. And then on the professional side, I went to him and I said, "What do you need?" And he said, "I need you to step in and run my company." And I said, "Are you crazy? Like I'm a year out of law school and business school. I've never really been in the real world. I don't know if that's the right decision." And he's like, "I don't have anyone else that I can trust to do this work. I believe in you and I think you can do this." So I was like, all right, let's fucking go.
Woo. So, I mean, this happens, unfortunately, to a lot of founders. And one of the things we talk about in exit planning is like, there's all the Ds. There's death, there's disability, there's divorce. There's all of these things that are unexpected that founders don't plan for that happen. And you need some form of succession plan. And it sounds like you were the succession plan in this part. Now,
yeah, I didn't know that at the time.
I know. But here you are. And right, there was no conversation prior to him being sick, right? There was never any. Okay.
No, you think I wanted to be in the furniture industry? No, thank you. I was like corner office, partner track. Let's go.
It's a tough, that's a tough industry too, the furniture industry. So I know Bassett Furniture from my leather sofa that I had many years ago that I bought
Uh-huh.
from Bassett. Woo woo. But talk to me about, so he owned the West Coast. Was it franchised or was it explained to
Yeah.
how that worked out?
Yeah, it was a franchise model. So he owned multiple locations on the West Coast. He's one of the biggest out here, the biggest out here. And so yeah, I jumped in and was running the show. I was the youngest person in the entire company globally, nationally. It was a national company. And I was definitely the youngest woman. And in his part of the company, one of I think 3 or 4 women. The rest were saleswomen. It was it was a lot.
Okay. Talk to me about day one.
I put on a suit. I
Mm-hmm.
was like sweat, the flop sweat feeling where thank God I was wearing black so no one could see. Right. But luckily I think people knew that I wasn't trying to be like a hot shot kid and like going in and, being daddy's girl and being like, I'm the boss now. I was going in because I had a very serious purpose of making sure that my family could survive financially and emotionally. So I think people knew that that was why I was there and I wasn't trying to be a jerk. And they were very helpful for the most part. I think there were some older, some pale mail and steel bros in the company that were not happy about a 26-year-old running the show for sure.
So, Laurel, I know you today. That's
Yeah.
present you, who is confident, a shining star, walks into a room and owns it, knows exactly what to do in any situation.
Mhm.
But at 26, I'm sure you must have experienced some sort of imposter syndrome or something walking in as that leader all of a
Mhm.
sudden.
Luckily, having gone through law school, you have Socratic methods. So you have to show up and know the work, and people call on your professors call on you. And if you don't know it, you're out. I mean, it's like literally legally blonde, right?
Is that
So,
real? Is literally
oh, yeah.
that's
Oh, yeah.
literally
100% real. 100% real. So I think having gone through that experience, and it serves me well to this day, I can pretty much show up in any room and speak about any topic and fake it enough to make it, right? It's one of the things my husband says he loves the most about me. Like, I will say something with such conviction that everyone thinks that I know exactly what the hell I'm talking about, even if he knows that he's like, you don't know what the hell you just said. But I say it with such conviction that everyone's like, oh yeah, totally. Like, let's just follow her off a cliff. Sure. So I think I have a lot of that chutzpah. And I've always had that. My dad said I came, out of the living room that way. I was like, rah, let's go. So even in that situation, I came into that particular situation a bit more humble because of the, circumstances and asked for support from those around me. But yes, I went in and I was I had my chest puffed. I had the right look suit on. I had my hair, pulled back into a tight pony. So I looked the part. And I had the education to back me up in that experience of the Socratic method so that I could show up in my best power at that moment.
fantastic. Okay. So you come in. Is your idea that you're going to immediately position the business for sale? Is it that you want to grow it? Where is your thinking when you come in, when you're dealing simultaneously with the crisis of your family and your dad's health?
Well, the truth of the matter is that going through that experience, I realized that my dad was a really good salesman and not such a great businessman. And so I came into a very unhealthy financial company. It was fully over leveraged. And so it was a turnaround. Again, at 26, my first real life experience in an over leveraged company. So I had to come in and really clean everything up. And as you know, we eventually sold it back to corporate and exited. It was really fucking hard.
That's really, really scary. So you
Yeah.
you walk in, it's over leveraged, so there's a
Hmm.
ton of debt out. What do you
Yep.
do? What do you do to fix it? What are your steps that you take to get there?
I mean, I was on the phone with the bankers all day, every day it was years. It was years of figuring out how to make this work and talking to the corporate teams and trying to restructure the debt that he owed to them and to the banks and to everyone that was involved. Yeah, like I said, I cried every day. It was really, really hard. But I will tell you, it definitely taught me that I was an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And it also taught me how not to run a business, sadly. Or, I mean, not sadly, but I think for it all in all, it has made me a much stronger leader and a strong operator.
Okay.
And I know how to read the hell out of the P&L.
I'm putting a pin We're going to get
Yeah.
to, I want to talk to how you sold it back to corporate,
Mm-hmm.
but I also want to talk about feelings about debt because it's so
Mm-hmm.
interesting now what you do in your career. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
fascinated. Your whole Okay, so we're working our ass off. We're crying. We are restructuring the debt. We're trying to get it put to a place of like solvency and good because you're shocked. You had no idea about any of this. Your dad is also sick, which makes everything heightened. How do you negotiate the sale back to corporate?
I think that they were ready for it and they kind of knew it was coming because he had just been, what do they call it, stealing from Peter to pay Paul for
You-
a really long time. Like it was underwater for, I can't even tell you how many years back I was looking at this debt. It was so bad.
The-
So it was me in lots of boardrooms with all pale, male, and stale guys. And it was, it was a lot of negotiations. I honestly can't really remember the exact steps I went through to get from point A to point B, probably because I haven't done enough therapy to truly get over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a really hard time.
And so when you negotiated the sale back to corporate and it's finally done, you feel relief, I assume. Yes.
I was glad it was over, but it was like going through a war, right? I mean, I had to negotiate on both sides, right? Because corporate wanted to run us through the ringer, and my dad didn't want to give it up because he thought if he came out of going through this cancer battle, that he could somehow turn it around, which he never was going to. So I was very much in the middle of this very long, drawn out battle, and I just wanted it to be over. I saw both sides very clearly. Neither side wanted to give an inch. And I was like, let's just be done with this, guys. Like, this is not healthy. Right. So, yeah, it was bad.
So you were like this middle person through all this.
Mhm.
Did your dad end up getting anything from the sale or did it all go to debt?
It bankrupted my family. And I share that openly because I think, and you and I have had this conversation, that we need to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, especially as it relates to money. And again, I think it's really what made me a stronger person, a really strong operator. And again, I think we need to have these really open conversations.
Thank you for sharing that so openly and honestly. After you go through this process, which is torturous, it sounds like for you, how do you
Yes, lots and
rebound?
lots of therapy.
Heart attack. Yeah. Did your dad get better? Like, where's the timing of the sale of when you know your dad's going to be okay?
Towards the end, so it was around the 2.5 year mark that we finally came to agreements on everything, and he was just on the end of his treatments, and they were like, we figured it out. And it turned out that he played golf with the doctor that created this technique called a neobladder, which is an overshare, but the intestinal wall tissue is very much like the bladder tissue. And so they were able to completely remove the bladder and reconstruct it within the body, which is, it was very new at that time. I know, it's
so
wild.
Grey's Anatomy of you. Wow.
I know.
That is
very
amazing.
cool.
Wow.
Very cool.
I'm so happy for him. So
25 years cancer free.
oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
So you come out of this and you have to rebuild and reinvent your career, and you had taken this pause and stepped back and done this. So where do you go from here?
Well, I started going after the big law firm jobs and getting those great 6-figure offers. And my mother was like so excited. Oh my God, you're going to be a partner again. This is so exciting. Meanwhile, I was at home drinking Pepto-Bismol for breakfast and lunch because there was something viscerally in my body that was like, this is not your path anymore. And, a month or two into that, where I was like, thank you, this is such a great offer from like the biggest firms, right? That any, lawyer would kill to be at. I was like, I gotta figure this out because clearly my body is telling me this is not for me anymore. And at the time I was consulting, before I really knew that that was a gig, right? And I just kept doing that. And about a year went by and I realized, oh, got it. This is actually like a thing. This is consulting thing could be like a real career. I'm making my own hours. I'm making really good money. I'm doing really fun things with amazing, interesting people. And if I'm going to play this game, I want to play this on a bigger scale. And that was around 2009 when Elevate, my first company, was launched.
Okay. So you go from going through this horrible experience where you get, an MBA times 3 in your your Bassett
Trial by
Furniture
fire.
application. You
Yeah.
start consulting, and here comes Elevate. So you start a marketing agency, you build a great team, and you start growing. At what point do you decide that maybe Elevate was a sellable asset, albeit in a very different way than Bassett, and something that you might want to look at a sale in a little bit of a different way?
I mean, I always had that in the back of my head, right? I always wanted to think about it as a saleable asset, and we grew really fast. We're most well known for the Squishmallows brand. I don't know if you're familiar with Squishmallows.
Of course, I
Yeah.
know Squishmallows. I'm surprised I don't have one behind me. My daughters
Yeah.
love Squishmallows.
Yeah. We had a kid show up on our doorstep in a Halloween Squishmallows costume a couple years ago, and I was like, I'm part of the cultural zeitgeist. Yes.
Part of our journey.
Yeah. So I always had that in mind because I came from M&A, right? That was like my background on the legal side. So I always knew that building a business, there was always an opportunity to sell it at any scale, right? Even a small company. But I also knew that I really had built a great lifestyle business. So I wasn't really thinking about it in terms of positioning it to sell until I thought about building fabric.
So tell us about fabric.
I know. That hadn't, I mean, if you told me I'd be launching a venture fund 2 years ago, I would have told you you're out of your friggin' mind, honestly. Okay. So lawyer background, MBA, launched this marketing agency. There we had worked with, at that point, over 300 companies. Over 200 of them were diverse led, and 48% had raised capital. So we kept seeing the startup raise exit model and just kind of were like going about our business and loving the work and building an incredible team and, happy. Because of my legal background, a lot of private equity and venture firms had just naturally been coming to us to market them. Nothing really exciting. Email marketing, web marketing, content, some social. Nothing really exciting. But like 2 years ago, one of the GPs asked me to stay on a call and was like, you should really think about launching your own venture fund. And I was like, you're crazy, David. I'm not doing that. Very flattered. No, thank you. Don't need a second headache or child. I'm good. Thanks. Bye. And then, of course, I became kind of obsessed with it and started going down the research rabbit hole. At that point, I was an LP in 2 funds, so I kind of knew what that side was like. And of course, having the M&A background, really understood that piece of it. But I actually hadn't seen that 2% number, which, Carrie, you know very well, right? The 2% number.
Of course.
And I saw that 2% number and I was like, well, that's really shitty, but I'm a capitalist. So how do we make money here, right? Can't just be bleeding heart. There needs to be a balance. And I kept digging. And that's when I saw the 25% number, which most people surprisingly don't know. Do you know that 25% number, Carrie?
Why don't you tell the audience so that we can share?
I'm so glad you asked. The 25% number is that when diverse-led businesses do receive any kind of funding, angel, venture, whatever, they return on average at a 25% higher return rate because they've had to be scrappier with less because they haven't gotten the 98% of the dollars that are out there in venture land. And that's when I was like, there's a business model here. That's when I got excited and I was like, put those 2 numbers together. I can get on board with that because I can do good and do well. Yep. I can get on board with that. So I called Jessie Draper. So we are LPs in her second fund, and we've been brought in very early days to vet a bunch of her consumer deals on her proof of concept fund 9 years ago. I've known her for like 20 years.
Okay.
And I called Jessie and I said, okay, I know this is wild. Just stick with me. I think I'm going to launch a venture fund. I know that's not how you know me. What do you think? And Carrie, her response was, fuck yeah, I'm in. Here's a check. Go raise a fund and I'm sitting on your board. And that is how Fabric started. It's so wild.
So you're running this lifestyle business in the agency, doing great work.
Yeah.
And you get inspired a bit with something new. I mean, so I will tell you, Laurel, so many founders that I know, they start a business, a lifestyle business. They love it. It's making them money, but they feel there is a calling to something else.
Definitely.
And that's when they decide to sell. And so I'm curious what direction you took, because as I gave a little spoiler in the beginning, you did not sell to a strategic or to a financial buyer. You took a different path. Tell us about that.
Well, when I decided to launch the fund, I launched it because that GP who brought the concept to my brain was like, look, you have this really unique secret sauce. Not only do you understand the nuances of what venture is and how powerful it can be, and you have this amazing deal flow, but you have this special sparkle sauce of marketing. And so I thought to myself, I did have the thought, Carrie, of course, of like, oh, I could exit my agency and go do this full time, right? But the truth is that the two companies are very, by necessity, tied together. So it wouldn't really make sense for me to do that at this time, because I decided if I was going to launch this fund, it needed to be very differentiated, especially in this very challenging market. So I have this idea in the shower, which is where you have all your best
All my
ideas,
ideas tend to be in the
right?
shower. Talk about this all the time.
And I have this idea that if I could use the listening software that we use on the marketing side, on the venture side, I can do a couple of things. I can pre-vet these companies and really de-risk our portfolio company picks, because the software tells us, are these companies' numbers real or are they full of shit, which so many of them are,
So many.
right? I can see how far they are from their direct and aspirational competitors in their space. So I can see the total addressable market, or their Sam, Tam, Som, all the things, right? And that really tells us if our check's going to meaningfully close that gap. And so what we developed eventually was this very unique approach to, and differentiated approach to, looking at deals and coming in and investing in deals. About a quarter of the deals that we write cash checks to, we match that with sweat equity on the marketing side. So the companies are very much intertwined together. So it didn't make sense for me to sell. So instead of doing that, what I knew was going to happen was that I was going to be pulled in too many different directions, and there just couldn't be two of me. So to your teaser earlier, what I decided to do was an ESOP, an employee stock option plan, for those who don't know. My two top folks at the agency, who happen to be a queer man and a Black woman, who've been with me for 4 and 5 years, respectively, maybe more than that at this point. I was like, this is in furtherance of our social and financial equity mission. They deserve this. And eventually I am going to exit and move and work on the fund. And eventually I'm going to exit entirely, right? And hopefully hand this over to them, and they're going to live their best life running this thing. So we did that, and the two firms are kind of in parallel working together, and living happily ever after so far. So it's been working really well.
An ESOP is such an interesting vehicle when you think about it. It's very tax advantageous to the owner who does the ESOP. It's very beneficial in giving the gift of entrepreneurship to employees. There's a lot of really, really good, strong things about it. Have there been any downsides for you in working with the ESOP, or did it just work for you as it should?
I mean, it's working. It was really friggin' hard to put together. I was like, I'm a lawyer. This is going to be easy. It's a 6 to 10 page doc. How hard could this be?
Yeah.
It's really friggin' hard.
Wow.
It's very nuanced, Carrie. Like, it's very, very nuanced.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
And it's not a straight up sale. It's different the way that it's structured, but it does have a lot of benefits. People, I think, don't go into ESOPs or don't explore it because it seems too complicated. It is complicated, but it is very, very beneficial when done well.
Well, so far so good. My team is super happy. I think it's a benefit to new team that we bring on as well. They're like, oh, wow, we could, if we stay here long term, we can actually own something, which is like so unheard of in this day and age. But the truth is, like, I've built something that I want to have longevity way past me. And this is the way to do that. And frankly, they deserve it. They're the ones that run the show day to day. I need nothing. I'm very happy with what I've built. My legacy is building an amazing team with amazing folks. And if I can help them create a better, brighter future, I've done my job.
And so tell me about Fabric VC. Are you fully invested? Where are you in the process? I mean, I'm sure I have listeners that are into this and want to hear about it. So give us a little scoop on where you are.
Yes, we are about halfway through our fundraise. So yes, please reach out if you're interested. We have deployed from 2 tranches of capital so far. So we have 10 current portfolio companies, which I tell people we are equally moving at the speed of lightning and also never fast enough as far as I'm concerned. It's been a very challenging fundraising environment for most people. So I'm very proud of how far we've come. And I keep telling people, at a small fund like this, which is a proof of concept fund, we're moving grains of sand. The next two funds that we will raise, which we hope will be in the $500 million to $1 billion range, that's the target, we will be moving mountains with those funds. So this was really like, do I want to do this for the next 20 years of my life? And it turns out I'm so built for this. I am so enjoying this work. It's a challenging environment, but being able to write checks to these founders is so joyful. But the work in this work, Carrie, as I told you when we first chatted, is having conversations with amazing women and women and men of color specifically about this asset class and really demystifying the conversation. I'm so proud to say that 60% of our investors are women and men of color, and it's really unheard of in this industry. So that is my true gift and joy in this work is having meaningful conversations around the asset class.
You're doing incredible work, Laurel, and I feel so excited that you've come on the podcast and that you're sharing this and your gifts with the world.
Well, thank you for giving me a platform to do that. That's when people are like, what can we do to help? I'm like, write a check, give me an introduction to someone who can write a check, or give me a platform where I can educate and empower folks about the power of this asset class. That's it. It's real easy.
There you go. Fabulous. Laurel, thanks for coming on the Exit Whisperer today.
Thank you so much for having me, Carrie. You're such a doll.